Hello, I am Peter Okwache. Welcome to Focus on Africa. Our top stories. Two candidates once considered outsiders are now poised for a runoff in Tunisia's presidential elections as official results are declared. Lawyers are on strike in Cameroon. They're protesting about working conditions and the abuse they say they face from the police. Also on the program, we speak to Microsoft founder Bill Gates about the latest development goals across the continent and the improvements needed to healthcare and education for girls.
You know, a child born in Finland is 50 times more likely to survive than one born in Central Africa.
And in sports, Liverpool will shortly begin their defense of the Champions League trophy. Thanks for joining us here on Focus on Africa from BBC World News. Two relative outsiders are poised to go head-to-head in the final round of Tunisia's presidential election in what's viewed by many as an upset for the political establishment. With official results now declared, law professor Kais Said took 18.4% of the vote, followed by the jailed media magnate Nabil Karoui on 15.6%. The runoff between the two candidates is likely to be held early next month. Let's talk now to my colleague from BBC Arabic. It's Amira Matbi. Amira, are you surprised by these results?
Hi, Peter. Yes, surprised, and to some extent we can say shocked.
Why is it? I mean, they were considered outsiders. Do we know why they've done this well?
They are outsiders because they didn't rule before. They don't basically have power experience, let's say, but they were always there, both of them. One of them, you know, he has TV channel, three of them, basically.
Media magnate.
Exactly, he's a media magnate and has always been there. The second one is also constitutional law professor. He has always been on TV talking about the problems in Tunisia since the revolution. We know them, but why they're there? For the second one, let's start with the second one, Nabil Karoui, which most of people expected him to be there because he's very well known, he's very near to people, especially poor people in poorer regions of Tunisia. He worked on this for last, say, couple of years or last months he focused on this. So we knew that people know him and some people love him, of course. The second one, we didn't expect. He's a constitutional law professor, as I said. He's known as a political analyst and no more than that. So we didn't really expect him to be there, but he did so because he knew, I think, he knew how to talk to people. That's one. Now, he's not an Islamist, and people maybe they had let's say, a bad experience or not very good experience with Islamists. He presented himself, I'm not an Islamist, but I will keep your religious belief on.
Okay, Amira, you stay with us.
Yes, sure.
We'll just go and find out more about these two candidates now in this report by Bassam Bounani.
The die is cast. Outsiders Kais Said and Nabil Karoui will head to the runoff of Tunisia's early presidential election. Said, a law professor, was unknown to Tunisians until the ousting of President Zainal Abidine Ben Ali in 2011. He becomes famous with regular television interviews as a pundit and is widely described as conservative. Said ran a low-profile campaign with few public appearances. Now that he gathered the largest number of voters, he seems confident for the runoff.
The people, the sovereign people, are my major allies. They are the main protagonists in this process. We are opening a new page in our modern history.
As for Nabil Karoui, nicknamed the Berlusconi of Tunisia, he is an unprecedented case in the country's history. This businessman, who his critics say is too close to the ruling elite with his private Nisma TV, is currently in jail facing financial crimes charges. Salwa Smawi, Karoui's wife, told me he should be free to guarantee fair and equal election.
I hope he will be freed and get equal opportunity in the runoff. He should be able to campaign under ordinary circumstances. If he's not freed, then the election will be unclean.
The Electoral Commission will announce the final results after addressing the appeals, if there are any. The Said Karoui pair has dethroned the classical political forces here in Tunisia, starting with Ben Ali's old guard to the moderate Islamist Party of Ennahda. Bassam Bounini, BBC, Tunis.
Amira, I want to concentrate a bit on Nabil at the moment. I mean, he's in prison. So what happens for this runoff?
That's a very tricky question, actually. It's the topic of debate in Tunisia on TV, social media, and between people. Now, he's still in prison, he's still in jail, but he's running as a candidate. As long as there is no final verdict in his case, he's not finally convicted of corruption and tax evasion. Until the runoff, which will be end of this month, if no appeal made, or next month, if he's not convicted until then, he is still a candidate. If so, if it happens and he gets convicted in this period, the high instance of elections in Tunisia said that he will be, of course, out of it. And the third-ranking candidate, who is Abdel Fattah Mourou, who is basically the representative of another party with Islamist background, he will be promoted second. And he will be in the runoff with Qais Said, the first one. Now here there is a problem because we don't expect the other parties to accept this. We expect them to protest and to claim the vote of Nabil Karoui, because they should say that the vote, if not of Nabil Karoui, his votes,
and that makes things even more complicated.
Exactly.
And if the two of them do stand, are able to stand, you know, how much votes can they draw from the... Because in all, there were 26 candidates for this election.
Exactly, but now we're left with two, and people who voted and who think of voting in the runoff, they have to choose one of them. So even those who voted for the other parties, different parties or independents, they have to choose whether Nabil Karoui or Qais Said. Now, if we go to the runoff and Nabil Karoui passes the final round and he's president, we have a very big issue, a legal issue. I think we will need a law expert, but what we will have is basically a president in jail who can't even swear in. So he has no immunity until he swears in. We know this. Exactly.
Interesting times. Yeah. Amira Madbi, I'm sure we'll still have you back on this program talking about this issue for the runoff. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers.
Now, lawyers in Cameroon are on day 2 of a 5-day strike in protest against the difficulties they say they encounter in performing their duties. They claim they've been denied access to their clients, who in turn have been subjected to torture, long detention periods, and other abuses. Kilian Ngala Chimtom sent this report from Cameroon.
For the striking lawyers seen here during their last strike in 2016, the recent trial and sentencing of Anglophone separatists was the final straw. They say the Anglophone separatist leaders were tried in a military court and in a language they did not understand. They say this is typical of what has gone wrong with the judicial system. It's claimed even lawyers have been subjected to abuse, including physical assault. Barrister Nicodemus Amongwa led the communication team for the Anglophone separatist leader, Sisiko Ayuk Tabe. He described an incident in July when he was hit from behind by 2 police officers on a motorbike. He alleges the abuse started when he tried to complain.
They strangled me to coma, and I only discovered myself in the hospital. The image of my transportation to the hospital has been so troublesome to me because I was dumped like cargo behind the boot of a Toyota pickup.
The Cameroon Bar Council has described a number of abuses against lawyers and their clients, including physical abuse, unnecessary extension of custody for suspects, and high court charges. The country's Human Rights Commission supports the striking lawyers.
We at the Commission here welcome the action very much, because they try to use a tool that is not available to us. What we seek to do as human rights defenders is to let society understand that prisons and places of detention are not places of torture.
The government has been appealing on lawyers to reconsider their strike.
I want to invite the Bar Council to take its responsibility to henceforth lead lawyers not through all-out protest, but through collaboration with public authorities. Lawyers are auxiliaries of the Justice Ministry with the noble mission to contribute to the administration of justice.
Lawyers are insisting that doing the right thing now is of absolute necessity. Kilian Gala, BBC News, Yaoundé.
Let's take a quick look now at other stories making the headlines across Africa and the rest of the world. Church leaders in Zimbabwe have written to President Emerson Mnangagwa to denounce what they call the deteriorating human rights situation in the country. The letter refers to at least 20 alleged recent abductions and says there hasn't been a single arrest. At least 4 people have died off the coast of Senegal's capital Dakar in a boat after a boat capsized in a storm on Monday night. The boat had left for an excursion to the Madeleine Island. That's despite warnings of bad weather. 35 people have been taken to hospital. The nationalities of the 4 who died have not been confirmed. The Democratic Republic of Congo's President Felix Tshisekedi has arrived in Belgium on his first official visit to Europe. The visit aims to normalize relations which were strained by the DRC's ex-president Joseph Kabila, who refused to step down when his mandate ended. This is Focus on Africa from BBC World News with me, Peter Okwoche. Still to come on the program, the 2019 African Freestyle Football Championships was held over the weekend in Nigeria, and a familiar face picked up the title in the men's category. I'm Peter Okwoche. The top stories this hour. The 2 candidates once considered outsiders are now poised for a runoff in Tunisia's presidential elections as official results are declared. And lawyers are on strike in Cameroon over their working conditions and abuse they say they face from the police. Now, just how well are African countries doing when it comes to healthcare and education? A new report released by the Bill and Melinda Gates Charitable Foundation identifies the world's progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals set by the UN. Known as the Goalkeepers Report, it highlights significant inequalities across the continent. Sophie Kenye has been speaking to Bill Gates about his foundation's achievements.
Well, the greatest progress we've seen is cutting the child-to-death rate. And so since 1990, it's been more than cut in half. And virtually every country has improved during that time frame. Likewise, they've improved on other measures like nutrition and education. And yet that absolute gap between the middle income and rich countries versus the poor countries in Africa is still quite dramatic. You know, a child born in Finland is 50 times more likely to survive than one born in Central Africa.
What can they do to accelerate and bridge that gap that is so enormous as you describe it?
Well, the key way to reduce child mortality is improving the primary healthcare system. You know, it's not about hospitals or doctors as it is about that worker who can get out to the rural villages and educate mothers about prenatal care and baby care and vaccination and various very basic nutrition things. And so there's 2 ways to learn. One is to look at other countries at a similar level of income and see ones that have done well. And on health, Africa has many positive examples. The other is to look within your own country, and this is a new thing with goalkeepers this year, is we've been able to break down to that subnational level, what we call districts, and show that even within, say, in India or in Nigeria, you have dramatic differences. And if you can just bring the worst districts to be near to the best districts, you'll make dramatic progress, both on health and education. The positive outliers would be countries like Ethiopia, Rwanda. Tanzania has always done a good job with its primary health care. The ones that lag would include all the region along the Sahel. Northern Nigeria is where you'd find the most kids born, but that whole area, Chad, Niger, that's the part of the world where you still have over 10% of the kids who are born die. Some parts of that region, almost up to 20%.
One statement that stuck out for me in the report is gender inequality. It says gender inequality cuts across every single country on earth. No matter where you're born, your life will be harder if you are born a girl.
There's a slogan that Group 1 uses, which is that poverty is sexist. That is, the manual labor, the lack of freedom, education that women experience is much worse in poor countries. And so even as you're improving the income, helping women makes a big difference.
Are there countries that come to mind that you found easier or more receptive to the kind of projects that you want to do?
Well, the quality of governance varies a lot. The stronger a government is in terms of being organized, raising taxes, making sure that the people they hire really are the right ones and they're showing up for their jobs, those very basic things predict a lot of outcomes. So, for example, Rwanda and Ethiopia, government workers are really held to account. They need to be there and perform their jobs. So you'll see both in the education sector and in the health sector, they get a lot of benefits out of that.
When we look at the African continent, for example, we are looking at people who are now becoming billionaires every other day. And for a philanthropist like yourself, what would be your advice to them in what sectors to invest in first? And should they really, really care?
Well, there are people like Aliko Dangote, who's doing fantastic philanthropy. Patrice Motsepe, several people like Strive Masawa, who've been successful in their business work in Africa, are doing amazing work. Some of them work on similar things to our foundations who are partners. Mr. Dangote and I work together a lot because he understands Nigeria. He's very committed to helping to improve all the countries he works in, particularly Nigeria. So the same spirit of philanthropy that you see in the United States, we are now seeing in Africa.
Bill Gates, founder of Microsoft, speaking to my colleague Sophie Kenya there. You're watching BBC Focus on Africa. It's now time for some sports. Mimi, take it away.
Thank you very much, Peter. In just over an hour's time, Champions League is back and Liverpool begin the defense of their title. They will be facing Napoli away, who last season beat Liverpool at home in the group stage. But Liverpool then went on to win in the reverse fixture to knock them out. The defending champions are already 5 points clear at the top of the English Premier League table. Jurgen Klopp is playing down how good they can be this time around.
We try to reach the level from last year again, and we don't even know exactly which level it was, to be honest, because nobody can measure it. But we want to be as consistent, at least, as last year and play our football of this year. Use the skills, use the confidence when it's there, get it back when it's not there, use momentum when it's there, get it back when it's not there, stuff like this. Stay in the game, fight for everything. That's what we want to do. Improvement, we will judge really at the end of the season, but if we then have time to compare it and not the next season is already waiting. So, but it's just do your best, and that's all the time.
Brazil have lined up friendlies with two African sides. They have confirmed that they will face Senegal on October the 10th and Nigeria 3 days later in Singapore. It will be the first ever meeting between Brazil and Senegal, who are the continent's top-ranked African side. They lost the Africa Cup of Nations final to Algeria over the summer in Egypt. Nigeria, who won bronze, will be meeting Brazil for the second time at senior level following a 3-0 defeat in a friendly back in 2003. Now, properties belonging to several top Nigerian football officials, including the Federation President Amaju Pinnick, are seized in the latest corruption probe. This fresh investigation comes on the back of two separate cases brought by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and an ongoing one by the Special Presidential Investigation Panel. Oluwashina Okeleji in Lagos has more.
According to the body responsible for the investigation and prosecution of corrupt practices in Nigeria, that is the ICPC, top officials of the Nigerian Football Federation have had their properties seized as the agency investigates how money meant for football development have suddenly disappeared. The body says it has marked properties in Nigeria as well as outside of the country belonging to its president, Amaju Pinnick, who alongside three others have always denied any wrongdoing. Pinnick, who formerly was the second most powerful man in African football, has always said he has done everything according to the book. He says this problem too shall go away, but the ICPC insists its investigation will continue until they get to the bottom of it.
Ivorian coach Francois Zahoui says he's left his post as coach of Niger after 4 years in charge. Zahoui has come out to say that his departure is due to personal reasons. Now, before I go, check this next story out. I don't know about you, but I certainly can't do what these guys do, which is to express themselves so freely with the ball, with their keepy-uppies and skills. Well, that's exactly what was done over the weekend in Nigeria. In the men's category, the reigning African freestyle champion, Abdul Titi Kone of Ivory Coast, retained his title. He was crowned the 2019 champion of the African Freestyle Football Championship held in Lagos. And Nigeria's Evelyn Okafor beat Hadhar Mohammed of Tanzania in the women's category to the prize.
I can do that.
Can you really?
I think
I'll
not.
quit to the Me neither. Me neither.
Many thanks, Mimi. Thank you. Now, he's already been named the world's best teacher, and now Peter Tabichi is about to take center stage at one of the biggest international events. He'll be speaking at the opening of the United Nations General Assembly. On his way to New York, he stopped by the White House to meet President Donald Trump. The science teacher and Franciscan friar has been a teacher for 12 years and has vowed to continue to help children get the best education possible. Well, earlier this year, when he was named the world's best teacher, Peter spoke to us at the BBC. Let's remind you of what he had to say.
I download the videos from YouTube, and then at the same time, I make my own videos. I record using my own camera. I am proud of mentoring my students to come up with innovations, especially girls. Girls, in most cases, are thought of like they don't like sciences. So through my mentorship and working closely with them, I've encouraged them to really like science. This achievement is not just for me, but I'm so happy because it is going to transform the lives of my learners, and also that the whole of Africa, they are going to respect teachers, and they have to know that teachers are a really special people. They are a really great people that the world needs to recognize. Not just Africa, even the whole world.
1, 2, 3.
Peter Tabichi, the world's best teacher. Now, just before we go, let's look at our top story again. Two relative outsiders are poised to go head-to-head in the final round of Tunisia's presidential elections. With official results declared, law professor Kais Said took 18.4% of the vote, followed by the jailed media magnate Nabil Karoui, who is on 15.6%. The final round of voting is likely to be held early next month. That's it on Focus on Africa from me, Peter Okwoche, and the rest of the team. Thanks for watching. See you soon.